Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Jenna here. I wanted to share a quick reflection. This is another audio only video. If you have not tuned in to the last podcast episode, which was out yesterday, I believe, check that out. I share an update, a mission update on what's been going on with me after coming out of a month, almost a month of deep silence and meditation and advanced yogic practice, which was a culminating point in a lot of ways after a year of dedicated, intense practice. So I share an update there and share some reflections on um, what's going on in the world and what I found to be the most kind of profound takeaway of the time I spent in transcendent states. But I also want to reflect specifically on the world events over this last month and the energetic shifts that we've experienced. And while I was spending most of the last month in deep silence and meditation and engaging transformational processes, which took most of my time, I was also following along with what's been happening in Israel and Gaza. And the nature of duality has become all the more clear after this last month. It was odd at times to be experiencing such transcendent, blissful, joyful communion with source energy, with God, and also be experiencing, the depths of pain and heartbreak at the loss of lives and what has turned out to be very horrific acts of violence, needless acts of violence. And I said to a friend recently, when I was reflecting on the nature of duality, that humans seem to be very good at creating hell-like experiences, but not so proficient at creating heaven-like experiences. And we're seeing hell manifest on earth right in front of our eyes. In one pocket of earth, we are seeing that manifest. There are lots of other ways in which that energetic of hell has manifested as well. We're all aware of that. But this is one of those moments where we see just mass slaughter, mass murder, which is some of the most atrocious manifestations of hell possible. When I reflected on hell in the previous episode, I think everyone's version of hell is different. I think there's a whole spectrum. We know that in our universe. We are on an entire spectrum of duality, right? We have the polarities and then there's a whole spectrum in between. So, I don't think it's necessary for this kind of hell to be experienced for us to be able to experience heaven. I think everyone's version of distortion, of density, of darkness looks different. And I don't think this type of darkness is necessarily required. It's possible. We know that, but it's not required. Humans are learning a really hard lesson right now. And, it's really hard to witness these sorts of things play out. And I think to some degree, moments like this have to be witnessed because moments like this can escalate and spin out of control so quickly. And if we turn away and we feel like it doesn't impact us, and it may not necessarily impact you directly right now, it is impacting all of us, and it will continue to impact all of us. And witnessing things like this causes pain, it causes grief and heartbreak. And we have to take that grief and that heartbreak and let it become loved fueled action that creates systemic change. And the irony of spending this last month in transcendent states of non action, of non duality, and then now talking about taking love fueled action brings me back to that spiritual work that we're here to do together. You know, while we're taking whatever action we feel called to take to help, or even if that's just sitting in prayer, whatever it is, you know, it's important that we're also continuing to do our internal work. We've got to stay focused on clearing our negative belief systems, any negative energies, negative karmas that we are personally carrying, because any of that we're still carrying, any of our own personal distortion that we're carrying contributes to the experience of separation and to the experience of these polarized extremes. So when we do that work, even if that might feel selfish, we are energetically contributing to a more heavenly future. And it's like what they say on the airlines, I guess, right? Like you have to put your oxygen mask on first. So take care of yourself. Make sure you're prioritizing spiritual actions that can make an impact for people, souls in this world who need help, and prioritize your spiritual life, your spiritual internal well-being. And also remember that planetary change takes a long time. Cycles must come to a close, and new ones then will begin. So we also need to stay focused on practices that help us stay resilient, because coming out of the Kali Yuga, which is the yuga, the era we've been in, requires strength and resiliency. We are exiting the darkest era known to humanity. So every time we cycle through this era, it is hard and it is destructive. So, you know, while zooming out and expanding our perspective doesn't stop the violence and doesn't comfort people in pain, it can help us understand why certain world events have played out and why they continue to play out and why we're here to help hold the light during times of darkness, during the end of those dark times. And luckily, this is the end of dark times. We're exiting the Kali Yuga, but these yugas, these eras are thousands of years long. So again, for the human lifespan, it's hard to put it in perspective. And when we're exiting the Kali Yuga, we're completing that whole era's karma. And we are allowing the larger 12,000 year cycle of descending, contracting consciousness to come to a close. So we have multiple cycles of karma that we're dealing with right now, which is why crazy stuff happens during that time of transition. And it's why it will probably keep happening for a while, right? Think again about that perspective of 12,000 years or a 2 to 3,000 year period. You can't clear that much karma in one generation. We can clear a lot of it, you know, in this generation, but that's why we have multiple waves of souls coming into this planet to help carry higher frequencies, to help move through this time of change. And if you've been feeling upset and disheartened and at a loss about world events, that's good. That means you care. It means you feel. It means you love. It means you have compassion and you are empathetic. And you are here to feel those things on behalf of this world, on behalf of a world that has not been able to feel those things as deeply and as empathetically as you can. You're here to use your whole heart and to keep that heart open, even if it hurts a little, as we're feeling for those who are caught in these cycles of violence. So thank you for feeling and for caring, even if it's hard. Keep your heart open. Try to turn any pain you feel into courageous, loving action on behalf of anyone who needs help. And remember that it's not all yours to fix, it's not all yours to take on. Any act of loving kindness right now is so important. Any small act of loving kindness, any prayer, any intention to send positive energy to someone in need, all of it counts, all of it matters. And remember too that in the spiritual process of transformation and transmutation, we have to feel it first. We can't transmute and clear and shift and change what we haven't felt first. So we have to feel all of the pain of humanity, of what we've been through, of what we have endured, of what our ancestors have been through. We have to feel it, and then we transmute it. And then we have the ability to create something more beautiful eventually. But this planetary transmutation process takes time. So trust the larger spiritual process playing out, even if that's hard. It's been hard for me too, even if there's moments where you just want it to end, you just want the suffering to end. It's like, why does it have to keep playing out? There are much larger cycles, much larger energetic momentum that has been created that has to be moved through. It can't all just stop, unfortunately. But we can lessen the impact, we can lessen the damage, we can lessen the trauma. We can create shifts that make this transition process out of the Kali Yuga as easy is not the right word, but as graceful as possible. And, I reflected on this a little bit in this week's podcast episode, and about how after all of the transcendence work, all of the transformation work, all of the supernatural, mystical, incredible experiences, the only real takeaway is love, and how you as a soul have displayed one of the most loving acts of kindness by being willing to come to earth right now, because you're an old soul. It's why you're here listening to this. It's why you're on this channel. And you came here to help hold the light during times of darkness, even if it doesn't feel like that's what you're doing. But you are. And even being willing to feel what you feel about what's going on. And then with power, taking loving action. That is holding the light during times of darkness. And just by coming here, that is a huge act of love. So again, with our somewhat blocked memory and ability to access universal information in this dimension, and with our limited perspective because of our short human lifespan, it's hard to put it all in perspective. It's hard to see it all clearly. But just know that whatever you've been feeling, I've been feeling that too. So I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you care. I'm grateful that we can hold space for a conversation like this together. I'm grateful that the world is awakening. It's hard to wake up. It is hard to wake up, and it is hard to then transform all of the distortions and darkness and negative energies we've carried. But we're doing it. We're doing it. And I am just so proud of you for being willing. And I will also say on record, I stand with the innocent people, period, both Israeli and Palestinian. And what is happening in Gaza is absolutely not okay. Israel and the US now have a lot of blood on their hands, and they are creating a lot of negative karma for their countries. And I stand with all who are calling for a ceasefire now. And I just think about the horrific irony of Israel turning into more or less a Nazi state at this point. What we are seeing is essentially mass genocide. Yes, a country has a right to defend itself, but what we are seeing is not self-defense anymore. And the world is waking up to that. And for that, I'm grateful. So I wanted you to know how I've been reflecting on this. I wanted to share any words of reflection that might be helpful for you, and to also just make it known what my stance is and why that is the case. So with love, I send you so much strength and power to move through these times gracefully and with protection and with love. Hang in there. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.